there is a secret that has been hiding in plain sight for the entirety of human history. It has been encoded in the oldest sacred texts ever written. It has been whispered in the mystery schools of ancient Egypt and Greece. It has surfaced again and again in the writings of mystics and philosophers and poets who sensed its truth even when they lacked the precise language to name it. And then, in the middle of the 20th century, a quietly extraordinary man from Barbados stood in lecture halls in New York and Los Angeles and said it plainly, without ornament, without apology, with the calm certainty of someone who had not merely theorized about it, but had tested it, lived it, and watched it transform every life it touched. He said it in 4 words. Feeling is the secret. Not thinking. Not wishing. Not the careful intellectual construction of a desired outcome. Not the disciplined repetition of affirmations spoken without conviction. Not the vision board on the wall or the journal entry about what you intend to attract or the positive attitude maintained with great effort against the grain of what the circumstances seem to be saying. Feeling. The actual, embodied, physically real sensation of already having the thing you desire. The felt sense, registered in the body, in the chest, in the hands, in the breath, of being the person for whom the desire is already a fact. That is the secret. That has always been the secret. And today, in the time we have together, we are going to understand it so completely, so precisely, and so practically that you will never again confuse the thinking about a desire with the feeling of its fulfillment. Because that confusion, that single, subtle, enormously consequential confusion, is the reason most people who encounter these teachings do not get the results they are looking for. They think about the desire. They think about it with great intensity and great frequency. They think about it in the morning, and they think about it at night, and they think about it during the drive to the grocery store and the quiet moments between other tasks. And the thinking changes nothing. Not because the law does not work, but because thinking about a desire in the absence of the feeling of its fulfillment is not a creative act. It is an observational one. You are observing the desire from the outside, from the position of someone who wants it, which is the position of someone who does not have it, which is the inner state that the subconscious mind receives and faithfully, precisely, without editorial comment, reproduces in the outer world. More wanting. More not having. More of the particular ache of the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. The feeling of fulfillment, by contrast, is a creative act of the highest order. It is the seed planted in the only soil that grows anything. And to understand why, we must understand the nature of the subconscious mind. Not as a psychological abstraction, not as a clinical term from a textbook, but as Neville Goddard understood it. As a living, responsive, extraordinarily powerful creative medium that is, at this very moment, building your outer world from the raw material of your inner states. Neville described the subconscious mind using the language of an ancient and universal metaphor. He called it the female principle. Now, I want you to sit with that image for a moment, because it is one of the most illuminating and most precise descriptions of how the subconscious actually operates that I have ever encountered. The female principle, in the oldest traditions of human understanding, is the principle of reception and generation. It receives the seed. It does not question the seed. It does not evaluate the seed or decide whether the seed is worthy of being grown, or whether the timing is right, or whether the gardener has earned the right to plant it. It simply receives it. And then it does what is its deepest nature to do. It gives the seed form. The subconscious mind operates by exactly this principle. It is the most faithful, the most tireless, the most uncritically obedient creative servant in existence. It receives whatever is planted in it with genuine emotional intensity, and it goes to work immediately, invisibly, and without rest, organizing the circumstances of your outer life to match the pattern of the seed. It does not distinguish between a seed you planted deliberately and a seed you planted by accident. It does not distinguish between a seed that will produce something you want and a seed that will produce something you fear. It receives the seed and it grows it. The seed is always only the feeling, not the thought. The feeling. And here is why that distinction is so critical and why it is so frequently misunderstood. The conscious mind operates in the realm of ideas. It thinks, analyzes, plans, evaluates, compares. It is the masculine principle in Neville's framework, the initiating intelligence, the one that chooses the direction and frames the desire. But the conscious mind does not create the outer world directly. It cannot. It does not have access to the machinery of physical manifestation. It can think about a desire with perfect clarity and perfect consistency for 20 years and produce no change in the outer world whatsoever if that thinking never penetrates the deeper layer where the actual creative work is done. The subconscious mind creates the outer world. Always. Without exception. Every circumstance of your life, every relationship, every financial condition, every recurring pattern of experience is the outward expression of a seed that was at some point planted with feeling in the subconscious mind. Some of those seeds were planted deliberately by you in moments of genuine imaginative engagement with a desired reality. Most of them were planted accidentally by the accumulated emotional weight of your habitual inner conversation, your fears, your assumptions about yourself and about the world, your deeply held beliefs about what is possible for someone like you in circumstances like yours. And those accidental seeds, planted without awareness and without intention, are growing in your life right now with exactly the same fidelity and exactly the same precision as any deliberately planted seed would grow. Because the subconscious mind does not know the difference. It only knows the feeling. And it grows what it receives. This is not a cause for despair. It is the most liberating piece of information available to a human being. Because if the outer world is always the expression of seeds planted in the subconscious, then changing the outer world is simply a matter of changing the seeds, of replacing the accidental plantings of fear and lack and habitual limitation with deliberate plantings of the feelings that correspond to the life you actually want to live. And the mechanism for doing that, the precise, practical, utterly accessible mechanism that Neville taught in every lecture he ever gave, is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not the thought of it, the feeling. Let me make this concrete, because I am a firm believer that a principle not grounded in the specific and the sensory is a principle that will remain permanently in the realm of the intellectual and never descend to the level where it can actually change a life. Think of something you want. Not abstractly. Specifically. Something you have wanted, perhaps for a long time, that has not yet appeared in your physical reality. Now notice what happens when you think about it in the ordinary way. You think about it, which means you think about the wanting of it. You think about why you want it, about how it would improve your life, about how long you have been waiting for it, about the distance between where you are and where it is. You might think about how it could possibly come to you, what steps you might take, what obstacles stand in the way. Notice the feeling that accompanies that kind of thinking. It is not the feeling of having. It is the feeling of wanting, of reaching, of the gap. Now, do something different. For just a moment, set aside everything you know about how the thing might come to you, every calculation of probability, and every assessment of obstacle. Set aside the thinking entirely, and simply ask yourself, what would it feel like in my body if this were already true? Not, what would I think? Not, what would I do? What would I feel? Where in the body would the feeling live? What is its texture? Is it warmth in the chest? A loosening of the shoulders? A quality of breath that goes deeper because the nervous system is no longer bracing against the possibility of lack? A lightness in the hands? A stillness behind the eyes? Find it. However small, however tentative. Find the feeling that belongs to the reality of already having the thing. That feeling, that precise, located, physically real sensation is the seed. That is what the subconscious mind can work with. That is what it receives as instruction. That is what it will grow into the circumstances of your outer life with the same faithful precision that the earth grows whatever is planted in it. Now, I want to take this understanding one step further into the territory that Neville considered the most important practical application of the entire teaching. The gateway through which the feeling most powerfully enters the subconscious mind. The moments just before sleep. Neville was extraordinarily specific about this. He did not teach it as one technique among many. He taught it as the technique, the royal road to the subconscious, the window through which the seed passes most directly and most deeply into the creative medium where it will be grown. And the reason is both simple and profound. In the ordinary waking state, the conscious mind is active. It is evaluating, comparing, criticizing, maintaining its running commentary on the distance between the desired state and the current reality. It is, in short, standing at the gate of the subconscious mind with its arms crossed, intercepting every feeling you try to plant and subjecting it to the scrutiny of its considerable skepticism. You feel the feeling of already having the thing, and the conscious mind immediately says, "But that is not true. You do not have it. Look at the evidence. Look at the bank account, the body, the relationship, the career." The feeling you are trying to inhabit is a fiction, and a somewhat embarrassing one at that. And so the feeling is interrupted. The seed never reaches the soil. The subconscious mind receives the criticism rather than the feeling, the awareness of absence rather than the sensation of presence, and it grows more of the same outer circumstances that prompted the criticism in the first place. But in the moments just before sleep, something extraordinary happens. The conscious mind begins to loosen its grip. Neville called this the hypnagogic state, that drowsy, floating, pleasantly dissolving quality of awareness that exists in the threshold between waking and sleeping. In this state, the critical faculty of the conscious mind grows quiet. The guard at the gate puts down his clipboard and closes his eyes. And in that receptive, undefended stillness, the feeling you have chosen passes directly, without obstruction, into the subconscious mind, into the soil, into the female principle, into the creative medium that receives the seed and begins immediately, through the hours of sleep and the days that follow, to grow it into the circumstances of the waking world. This is why Neville said, with a consistency that amounted to insistence, that the last feeling you carry into sleep is the most important feeling of your day. More important than what you did. More important than what you said. More important than what happened to you or how well you responded to it. The last feeling you carry into sleep is the seed that the subconscious mind will work with through the night and through the days that follow, organizing your outer circumstances, moving people into position, opening doors, closing others, with the sole and perfect intention of producing in your waking life the outward expression of the inner feeling you planted as you drifted into unconsciousness. This means that the 5 minutes before you sleep are among the most consequential 5 minutes of your entire day. And most people spend them reviewing everything that went wrong, rehearsing the difficult conversation, running the financial arithmetic, replaying the moment of tension or disappointment or worry that the day produced, planting, with the full emotional weight of genuine feeling, seeds of more difficulty, more tension, more of the precise circumstances they most want to change. And then they sleep. And the subconscious mind receives what was given and goes to work. And the morning brings more evidence of the same reality they fell asleep rehearsing. This is not a condemnation of those people. It is a description of every person who has not yet been given this understanding, including, at various points in our lives, every one of us. But now you have the understanding. And the understanding changes everything. Because now you know that those 5 minutes before sleep are not a passive experience to be endured until unconsciousness arrives. They are the most powerful creative opportunity available to you in any given day. They are the open gate, the unguarded threshold, the moment when the seed you have chosen can pass directly and without obstruction into the soil that will grow it into your life. And the only question that matters in those 5 minutes is, what feeling do I choose to carry into sleep? What is the seed I am planting tonight? We are going to answer that question with great precision as we continue. We are going to sit with a story that illustrates this practice at its most human, most tender, and most transformative. And we are going to close our time together with a practice so specific and so grounded in the sensory reality of your actual desired life that you will be able to use it tonight, in the 5 minutes before sleep, to plant the most powerful seed you have ever planted in the creative soil of your subconscious mind. But first, let this land. Feeling is the secret. Not someday. Not when the technique is perfected. Not when the doubt is fully resolved and the faith is pristine and the practice is consistent. Tonight, in the 5 minutes before sleep, with whatever feeling you can genuinely inhabit, however small, however tentative, however imperfect, plant the seed. And trust the soil to do what soil has always done. I want to tell you about a woman named Margaret. She was 67 years old when her story, the part of it I am about to share with you, began. Though in truth the story had been unfolding for much longer than that. The way the most important stories always do, quietly, beneath the surface of the visible, in the accumulated weight of choices made and words spoken and silences kept for too many years. Margaret had 2 children, a son named David, who was 41, and a daughter named Claire, who was 38. Both of them lived within 2 hours of her home in the mid-Atlantic region of the country. Both of them had families of their own, spouses and children, and the full, complicated texture of adult lives. And neither of them had spoken to her in 4 years. I want to be careful here, because the particulars of how an estrangement begins are rarely simple, and I have no interest in assigning blame to anyone in Margaret's story, least of all to Margaret herself. What I will say is this. There had been a conflict. The kind that begins with something specific and real and manageable, and then, because it is not addressed with the right combination of honesty and humility and love at the right moment, grows roots that go far deeper than the original incident. The kind that calcifies over time into positions, into narratives, into the particular hardness of people who have been hurt and have decided, consciously or not, that the protection of their hurt is more important than the restoration of the relationship. On both sides. Margaret had made attempts. Letters that were not answered. Phone calls that went to voicemail and stayed there. A birthday card returned unopened, which was the moment she would later describe as the one that broke something in her that she did not know how to repair. By the time she was 67, she had largely stopped attempting. Not because she had stopped wanting the reconciliation. The wanting never stopped, not for a single day, but because the repeated experience of reaching out and being refused had produced in her a particular kind of exhaustion that goes deeper than tiredness. The exhaustion of hope that has been disappointed too many times. She had found Neville Goddard's work through a friend who had pressed a book into her hands with the quiet urgency of someone who believes they are handing over something important. She had read it with the careful skepticism of a woman who has lived long enough to be cautious about things that sound too good to be true, and the quiet hunger of a woman who has also lived long enough to know that she cannot afford to dismiss anything that might help. The teaching about the subconscious mind, about the feeling as the seed, about the sleep gateway, had resonated with her in the way that a true thing resonates. Not with the excitement of novelty, but with the recognition of something familiar encountered in a new form. But she had a problem with it. A specific, honest, entirely understandable problem that I want to name directly because I know she is not alone in having it. She could not feel the reconciliation. She could think about it. She could imagine it in the visual sense, could picture her children's faces, could construct a mental scene of reunion. But when she tried to move from the picture to the feeling, she ran into a wall. Because the feeling that arose when she brought her children to mind was not the feeling of reunion. It was the feeling of loss, of the 4 years of silence, of the birthday card returned unopened, of the particular grief of a mother who loves her children and cannot reach them. And she could not seem to get past it to the feeling she was supposed to be planting. She brought this problem to her reading of Neville with great honesty, sitting with his words the way you sit with a difficult but trustworthy teacher, not looking for an easy answer but genuinely trying to understand what she was missing. And she found it in a passage that stopped her completely. Neville wrote that the feeling does not have to be grand. It does not have to be the full emotional experience of the desired reality all at once. It can be small, specific, sensory. A single detail of the desired reality, felt with genuine physical precision, is enough to plant the seed. Not the whole reunion. One moment of it. She sat with that for a long time. And then she asked herself a question that changed everything. If the reconciliation were real, if her children were back in her life, if the estrangement were over, what would be the one physical sensation she would most want to feel? Is less than has home. 5# is greater than. Not what would she see. Not what would she say or hear. What would she feel in her body? The answer came without deliberation. The weight of their arms around her. That was it. That specific, physical, utterly precise sensation of being held by her children. The pressure of David's arms, which had always been strong, he had been an athlete in his youth, across her shoulders. The particular way Claire hugged, with her whole body, leaning in completely, the way she had done since she was a small girl, and had never entirely stopped doing, even as an adult. Margaret knew exactly what that felt like. She had felt it hundreds of times in the years before the estrangement. It lived in her body as a memory so specific and so physical that when she brought it to mind with full attention, she could feel the ghost of it in her shoulders and her chest. And she realized, sitting with that recognition, that this was her seed. Not the visual scene of reconciliation, not the imagined conversation or the mental picture of their faces. The weight of their arms. The specific, located, physically remembered sensation of being held by the two people she loved most in the world and had not been able to reach for 4 years. She began that night. In the 5 minutes before sleep, as the drowsiness began to soften the edges of her waking awareness and the critical mind started its familiar loosening, she brought her attention to her shoulders and her chest, and she invited the feeling. Not the thought of it. Not the picture of it. The feeling. The weight of David's arms across her shoulders. The lean of Claire's body against hers. The warmth of it. The solidity of it. The specific, irreplaceable physical reality of being embraced by her children. She did not try to hold the feeling for a long time. She did not strain for it or perform it. She simply found it in the sensory memory her body had kept faithful for 4 years, and she let it be present as she drifted toward sleep. Some nights it came easily. The body remembered, and the feeling arose with a vividness that surprised her, that sometimes brought tears. Not the tears of grief she had cried so many times before, but a different quality of tears, the kind that arise when something true is recognized. Other nights it was thinner, a suggestion of the feeling rather than the full sensation. A faint warmth in the chest rather than the full embodied weight of the embrace. She planted the seed anyway, on the thin nights as on the full ones, with a quiet persistence of someone who has understood that the consistency of the planting matters more than the intensity of any single session. She did this every night for 11 weeks. And in those 11 weeks, nothing changed in the outer world. David and Claire did not call. There were no letters, no emails, no unexpected softening of the silence that had stretched between them for 4 years. The outer world remained, to all appearances, exactly as it had been. I want to sit with those 11 weeks for a moment, because they are the most important part of Margaret's story, and the part most likely to be glossed over in the telling. 11 weeks of planting the seed every night and seeing no evidence of growth in the outer world. Most people would have stopped. And stopping would have been the most understandable thing in the world. The most human thing. The thing that every reasonable evidence respecting experience-hardened part of the mind would have counseled. Margaret did not stop. Not because she was free of doubt. She was not. There were nights when the practice felt thin and slightly absurd, when the critical mind reasserted itself in the drowsiness and said, "You are an old woman lying in the dark, pretending to feel a hug from children who do not want to speak to you." She heard that voice. She did not argue with it. She simply returned to the feeling. The weight of their arms. Again and again. Night after night. Through the doubt and the thinness and the 11 weeks of outer silence, she returned to the feeling. In the 12th week, she received a text message from Claire. It was not a long message. It was not a declaration of reconciliation or an apology or a dramatic gesture of any kind. It was 7 words. "I have been thinking about you, Mom." Margaret sat with her phone in her hands for a long time after reading those 7 words. Not because they resolved everything. They did not. Not yet. The bridge had only just appeared, and there was still road to travel. But because she recognized them. The way you recognize the bridge when you step onto it. She replied simply and warmly, without the weight of 4 years pressing on every word, without the desperation of someone who fears this is their only chance, and must therefore make it count so intensely that it collapses under the pressure. She replied as the person she had been practicing being. The person for whom the reconciliation was already, in the most important sense, a reality. The conversation that followed over the next several weeks was not always smooth. Real reconciliations never are. There were difficult exchanges and moments of old tension resurfacing, and the careful, sometimes awkward navigation of 2 people who love each other and have hurt each other and are trying to find their way back to something that was lost. David took longer. His silence extended another 3 months beyond Claire's first message. And Margaret, who by now understood something about bridges and intervals and the importance of not interfering with a process that was already underway, held her state through those 3 months with a steadiness that she would not have thought herself capable of a year earlier. She kept planting the seed. Every night. The weight of his arms across her shoulders. When David called, it was on a Sunday evening in early spring. He did not begin with an apology either. He began with something simpler and, in its simplicity, more powerful. He said, "I miss you, Mom." The reconciliation that followed was not the erasure of everything that had happened. It was something more honest and more durable than erasure. It was the decision made by each of them in their own time and their own way to value the relationship more than the position. To choose the love over the grievance. To step back onto the bridge that Margaret had been building in the dark, in the 5 minutes before sleep, for nearly a year. 6 months after Claire's first text message, Margaret sat in her living room with both of her children and their families around her. A Sunday dinner, the kind she had not hosted in 4 years, loud with the voices of her grandchildren and the smell of food and the particular warmth of a house that is full of the people who belong in it. And at one point in the evening, Claire crossed the room and put her arms around her mother from behind, the way she had always done since she was a small girl, leaning in completely with her whole body. And Margaret felt the weight of it. The specific, physical, precisely remembered weight that she had been planting as a seed in the soil of her subconscious mind for the better part of a year. She felt it in her shoulders and her chest, exactly as she had practiced feeling it in the 5 minutes before sleep. And she understood, with a clarity that required no further argument, that the feelings she had inhabited in imagination had become the fact of her physical life. Not by magic. Not by coincidence. By law. The seed had been planted with genuine feeling in the most receptive soil available to a human being. And the soil had done what soil always does. It had grown it. Now I want to draw from Margaret's story the specific practical understanding that I believe will be most useful to you as you take this teaching into your own life. Because her story illustrates something that Neville taught with great precision and that is frequently overlooked in discussions of this work. The power of the specific sensory detail. Margaret did not try to feel the entirety of the reconciliation all at once. She did not attempt to construct a grand imaginal scene, complete with resolved conversations and healed wounds and the full emotional landscape of a relationship restored. She found one thing. One specific, physical, sensory detail that belonged to the reality of the wish fulfilled. The weight of their arms. And she felt that one thing with such physical precision and such genuine embodied reality that the subconscious mind received it as instruction and went to work producing the outer circumstances that would make it physically real. Neville called this finding the tone of reality. And it is, I believe, the most practically useful concept in this entire teaching for the person who is struggling to move from the intellectual understanding of the principle to the lived, felt, embodied practice of it. The tone of reality is the specific sensory feeling that signals to the subconscious mind that the desire is real. Not hoped for. Not visualized. Real. It is different for every desire and every person. And finding it is less a matter of technique than of honest, patient, inward listening. For someone who desires financial security, the tone of reality might not be the abstract feeling of wealth. It might be the specific physical sensation of holding a particular object, the weight of a set of keys to a home that is fully paid for, the texture of a leather wallet that is thick rather than thin, the ease of a body that is not braced against the next unexpected expense. For someone who desires restored health, the tone of reality might be the feeling of a particular physical freedom, the ease of walking without pain, the depth of a breath that reaches the bottom of fully clear lungs, the specific lightness of a body that is well. For someone who desires a loving partnership, the tone of reality might be the warmth of a hand held in a specific way, the comfort of a presence in the room that means you are not alone, the particular quality of an evening that is shared rather than spent in solitude. The question to ask yourself, the question that Margaret asked herself, and that I want to leave with you now as we move toward the close of our time together, is this. If the desire were already real, already fully manifest in my physical life, what is the one specific sensory feeling that I would most want to feel? Not what would I think, not what would I see, What would I feel in my body? Find that feeling. Name it as precisely as you can. Locate it in the body. Give it texture and weight and temperature and specificity. Because that feeling is your seed. And tonight, in the 5 minutes before sleep, when the gate is open and the soil is receptive and the critical mind has finally, mercifully, put down its clipboard and closed its eyes, that is the feeling you are going to plant. With whatever intensity you can genuinely inhabit. With whatever vividness is available to you in that particular evening's particular quality of drowsiness. Without strain, without performance, without the pressure of getting it exactly right. Simply with the honest, quiet, persistent intention of a gardener who knows what they are planting and trusts the soil to do the rest. That is the practice. That is the master key. And in our final time together, we are going to go deeper into it, into the specific technique of finding your tone of reality, into the practice of anchoring it in the body so completely that it becomes the natural feeling you carry into sleep, and into the meditation that will allow you to plant tonight's seed with more precision and more genuine feeling than you may have thought possible. The soil is ready. And so are you. We have come a long way together today. We have understood with a precision that I hope has moved the teaching from the realm of the intellectual into the realm of the genuinely felt, why thinking about a desire produces nothing, while feeling its fulfillment produces everything. We have sat with Margaret and watched her plant the simplest, most specific, most physically real seed imaginable, the weight of her children's arms, and we have watched that seed grow through 11 weeks of outer silence and one woman's quiet, persistent, imperfect faithfulness into the Sunday evening that filled her house with the people she loved most and had lost and found again. And we have been introduced to the concept that I want to spend the first part of this final block exploring with you in the fullest possible practical depth. The tone of reality. Because understanding this concept intellectually is one thing. Being able to find your own tone of reality, the specific sensory detail that belongs uniquely to your desired manifestation and to your body's way of knowing that something is real, that is the skill that transforms this teaching from beautiful philosophy into a living, daily, genuinely creative practice. Let me describe what I mean by the tone of reality with a few examples that are as concrete and as sensory as I can make them. Neville himself used the example of a ring. He spoke of a student who desired a specific ring, a ring that was beyond their current financial means, and who had been visualizing it without result for some time. Neville asked the student, not what do you see when you imagine the ring, but what do you feel? The student described seeing the ring, picturing it on their finger, imagining its appearance. Neville said, that is not enough. Feel the weight of it on your finger. The specific, physical, impossible to fake sensation of a ring's weight on a specific finger of a specific hand. The slight pressure of the band. The warmth of the metal after it has been worn long enough to take on the temperature of the body. The unconscious awareness of it that a person who wears a ring always has, that peripheral physical knowledge that something is there on the hand, real and present and belonging to you. That is the tone of reality for that particular desire. Not the image of the ring, the weight of it. He used the example of a new car. Not the sight of it in the driveway, not the mental picture of its color or its make or its gleaming exterior in the morning light. The smell of it. That specific, instantly recognizable, entirely particular smell of a new car interior, the combination of leather and carpet, and the particular chemical newness of materials that have not yet been worn into familiarity. A smell so specific and so physical that even the memory of it, called up with full attention, produces a genuine sensory response in the body. That is the tone of reality for that desire. Not the vision of the car. The smell of the interior. He used the example of a desired home. Not the floor plan, not the mental tour through the rooms, not the imagined view from the window. The feeling of a specific door handle in the hand. The particular weight and texture of the handle of the front door of a home that is yours. The way it feels when you turn it with the ease of someone who has turned it 1,000 times before, who belongs there, for whom this is not a visited place but a home. That is the tone of reality. Do you begin to feel the pattern? The tone of reality is always specific, always sensory, always located in the body rather than the mind, always the kind of detail that the imagination cannot sustain as an abstraction, but that the body knows immediately and unmistakably as real. It is the detail that bypasses the conscious mind's capacity for skepticism because it speaks directly to the nervous system in the language the nervous system understands. The language of physical sensation. And here is the extraordinary thing about finding your tone of reality and using it as your seed. Once you have found it, once you have identified the specific physical sensation that belongs to the reality of your wish fulfilled, the practice becomes remarkably simple. Not easy, necessarily. The discipline of returning to it every night, of choosing it over the habitual replay of the day's difficulties, of planting it with genuine feeling even on the nights when the feeling is thin and the doubt is loud, that requires the kind of quiet persistence that Margaret demonstrated over 11 weeks of outer silence. But simple. Because you are not trying to construct a complex imaginal scene or maintain a sustained visualization or feel an entire emotional landscape all at once. You are simply finding one feeling. One specific, sensory, physically real feeling, and carrying it into sleep. Night after night. With whatever vividness is available. Without strain and without performance. Planting the seed and trusting the soil. Now, I want to help you find your tone of reality before we close. Not as an abstract exercise. As an actual, right now, in this moment practice that you can carry directly from this conversation into tonight's 5 minutes before sleep. I want you to bring to mind one desire. The one that is most present for you right now. the one that has been with you longest perhaps, or the one that feels most urgent, or simply the one that arose most naturally when I said the word desire. Hold it lightly in your awareness, not with the grip of wanting, with the open hand of someone who is about to receive something. Now I am going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to answer them not with your thinking mind, but with your body. Let the answers arise from sensation rather than analysis. If this desire were already real, already fully present in your physical life, already a fact of your daily existence, rather than a hope for the future, what would your body feel first? Where would you feel it? In the chest is less than hason. 2 is greater than the shoulders? The hands? The belly? The breath? What is the temperature of it? Is it warmth or coolness? Is it the warmth of something held close, or the coolness of something clean and spacious? What is the weight of it? Is there something in the body that would be heavier, like the satisfying solidity of a life that is full? Or something that would be lighter, like the release of a burden that has been carried too long? What is the texture of it? Smooth or rough? Soft or firm? The texture of something new, or the texture of something so familiar it has become part of you? Is there a smell that belongs to this reality? The smell of a home, of a season, of a particular place where you have felt at peace? Is there a sound? The sound of a voice, of laughter, of a silence so comfortable it has its own particular quality? Let the answers come from the body. Let them be imprecise, if they are imprecise. Let them be fragmentary, if they are fragmentary. You are not looking for a complete picture. You are looking for one detail, the one that feels most real, the one that, when you bring your full attention to it, produces even the faintest genuine physical response in the body. That is your tone of reality. That is your seed. Hold it now, just for a moment. Let it be as present as it wants to be, without forcing and without performing. And notice what happens in the body when you let it be real, even for just this one quiet moment, even in the midst of the ordinary circumstances of your ordinary day. Notice the slight shift in the breath, the almost imperceptible easing in the chest, the quality of attention that changes when the body is given something real to feel rather than something abstract to think about. That shift, however slight, is the seed making contact with the soil. That is the master key turning in the lock. Now I want to bring everything we have explored today into a final practice, a closing immersion that I want you to carry into the 5 minutes before tonight's sleep. Find your comfortable position and let the body settle. Let whatever surface holds you receive your full weight. Let the hands open. Let the breath find its own natural depth without being managed or performed. Close your eyes and take one breath that is slightly slower and slightly deeper than the last. As you exhale, let the surface of the day release. Not the whole day, not all of its weight and texture at once, but the surface of it. The layer of accumulated busyness and noise and the small frictions of ordinary hours. Let that surface layer go with the breath. And beneath it, find the quiet. The particular quality of stillness that exists just below the surface of the busy mind. The stillness that is always there, always available, that the noise of the day covers but never eliminates. Rest in that stillness for a moment. Just a moment. Let it be what it is, which is the natural state of a consciousness that has temporarily released its grip on the management of the outer world. Now, bring your desire gently into this stillness. Not as a problem to be solved, not as a distance to be covered, as a fact of your inner world that is in the process of becoming a fact of your outer world. And find the tone of reality. The one specific sensory detail that belongs to the reality of this desire. The weight, the warmth, the texture, the smell, the particular physical sensation that your body knows as the signature of this particular wish fulfilled. Let it arise in the body now, however tentatively, however gently. If it is a weight, feel the weight. Let the body register it as physical and present and real. If it is a warmth, feel the warmth. Let it spread from wherever it begins, the chest, the hands, the shoulders, and let it be as full as it wants to be, without being forced to be fuller. If it is a release, a loosening, a laying down of something heavy, feel that. Let the body experience the specific physical sensation of no longer carrying what it has been carrying. Let the feeling be as real as it can be in this moment. And let this moment be enough. Let this single, specific, genuine sensory experience of the wish fulfilled be the complete and sufficient seed that it is. Because it is sufficient. One genuine feeling, however brief, however imperfect, planted in this quality of stillness, is enough for the subconscious mind to receive and to begin its work. The soil does not require a perfect seed. It requires a real one. And real means felt. Not imagined at a distance. Not thought about from the outside. Felt. From the inside of the desired reality. From the body of the person for whom this is already true. Stay with the feeling now. Let it be the dominant experience of this moment. Let it crowd out the arithmetic of doubt and the inventory of obstacles and the well-worn habit of wanting without having. Let it simply be. The feeling of already. The feeling of done. The feeling of a seed placed with care and with faith in soil that has never, not once in the entire history of consciousness operating in this world, failed to grow what was genuinely planted in it. Rest there as long as you wish. And when you open your eyes, carry the echo of it with you. Not the full feeling necessarily. The full feeling will return tonight when the gate opens again and the soil is receptive again and the seed can be planted again, with the consistency that Margaret brought to her practice through 11 weeks of outer silence. But the echo of it, the quiet knowledge that the seed was planted, that the soil received it, that the subconscious mind, faithful and tireless and utterly without judgment, is already at work, growing what you gave it into the circumstances that will one day be the outer expression of this inner truth. Carry that knowledge gently through the rest of your day. And tonight, in the 5 minutes before sleep, when the gate opens and the guard puts down his clipboard and the drowsy stillness settles over the busy mind, like snow settling over a field, return to the feeling. The tone of reality. Your seed. Plant it again. Simply and sincerely and without the pressure of perfection. With the quiet confidence of a gardener who has understood something fundamental about the relationship between the seed and the soil, and who no longer needs to dig up the root to check whether it is growing. Because it is growing. It has been growing since the first moment you felt it with genuine physical reality. It is growing now in the invisible, in the creative medium of the subconscious mind, in the place where the facts of tomorrow are always assembled from the feelings of today. You cannot see it yet. Margaret could not see hers through 11 weeks of outer silence. But the silence was not emptiness. It was the seed in the ground doing in the dark what it could not do in the light. And one day, on a morning you have not yet reached, in a way you have not yet imagined, through a door you may not yet know exists, it will break the surface. And you will feel it. Not as a surprise, as a recognition. The recognition of someone who planted a seed with genuine feeling and trusted the soil and waited with the patient, persistent, quietly determined faith of a person who has understood the master key and used it and found it to be exactly what Neville Goddard said it was. The only key. The secret that was never truly hidden. Only unfelt. Feeling is the secret. It has always been the secret. And now it is yours. Go well, my friend. Go gently. And go tonight into sleep carrying the one feeling that changes everything.